Folks, good afternoon to some out there. How's it going? Hopefully, everyone is enjoying their Friday so far. Start of the weekend here is just upon us. October 10th, 2025 is the date. Local time here in California is 11:58 a.m. A 3.6 earthquake there, the latest around the Java Trench area in the red flag. Also a 1.0 across California. Take a look at this earthquake 3D globe right now. We got a lot of earthquake activity stirring up in the Philippines. Of course, last night got a pretty decent 7.4 earthquake stirring up in the area. A bunch of fives, a bunch of fours. In fact, we've seen hundreds of earthquakes out here since the 7.4 magnitude earthquake last night. Excuse me. With the largest so far being a 6.7. This originally came in as a 6.9 aftershock. Watching this closely here because, of course, the Philippine Trench here, let me show you guys the oceanic crust view. It's a major subduction zone, and this area can get some big earthquakes up in the 8 range and higher. So 7.4 there is a decent size event, right? But it's not completely alleviating the strain that's built up out here. In fact, if you think about it, this is just an earthquake calculator model here, where you get these numbers. There's a certain number that you can multiply to get that energy in terms of a smaller compared to a larger earthquake. So you would need 60.3 magnitude 7.4 earthquakes to be the equivalent in energy of an 8.0. So, just because we had a 7.4 and it's only a couple numbers off of an 8.0, that does not mean that we are completely free and far as seeing anything larger here. It's a very good possibility we could be looking at something larger here in the Philippine Trench. Remember, 7.4 is just, it would need 30 of them to equal an 8.0. I want to go back here real quick and show you guys the history out here in this region. We're going to go 7.4 and above, and we're just going to go back an extended time here. Doesn't mean it's going to go back all that far, but 1,000 years. He's digging into some history that can't really get into, can't track anyway. But I do want to show you guys the Philippine Trench and the mega quakes out here that have happened. Not trying to fearmonger anything here, but we have to be realistic of time. And time in geology is frightening when it comes to earthquake activity. There's the 7.4 that stirred up yesterday there. Heavily populated area to the west, a lot of coastal ranges there as well. Strong earthquake into the Philippine Trench. Now, I want to show you guys here some of these larger magnitudes in this area. I'm just zooming in specifically around this area of the Philippines. And look at the time that has passed since an 8.1 struck. That's a little bit further to the south here. This one's a 7.5, the year 2000. 7.8, 1943. 7.4. The thing is that we have had some 8-pointers in this area. And at least 2 of them. There's a third one a little bit further to the southwest here. But the whole point is that this region can see and will see 8.0 earthquakes in the future. Now, whether we're going to see that with the associated activity that we're seeing right now from a 7.4, we will have to watch the aftershock activity there for sure. That's the main thing that we got to keep an eye on. Similar to what we had up in the Kamchatka, Russia area back in July. Remember, they had a bunch of 6s and then a 7.4 and a bunch of 5s, and for almost 10 days there, I was talking about how this was leading to something bigger. Has to mean that something's bigger. That the magnitudes are increasing, and the multitude of earthquakes were increasing as well. And of course, that led up to an 8.8 10 days later. Watching this, not certain yet that it's going to go either way in terms of larger movement, or if this is just going to be it. Magnitudes die down over time. But we do have to watch that. That's a pretty large aftershock there this morning. And that was a number of hours after, quite a few hours after the 7.4. As of right now, the latest shows a 4.6, but there's a lot more. I guarantee you there's so much more. We're talking about hundreds of earthquakes there that have stirred up since that since that big event there. Now, according to the few articles I can find, when it comes to the aftershock numbers, that's what we got to keep an eye on, because if there's more than normal, then that could lead to something. It could be a sign that a bigger event is about ready to take place. As of October 10th, 299 aftershocks had been recorded by the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology. So that's from the official site there, 299. So just because the USGS is only showing, what do we got up here, 28, that's still a lot of earthquakes there for, those type of magnitudes. And the Earthquake 3D globe is picking up a fraction of them as well. But we're almost at 300 aftershocks there in the area of the Philippines. For example, there was a 7.4 in Mexico 2020. Over 447 aftershocks were reported from that event. So we got to watch, see if this doesn't start increasing in terms of the magnitude level, because that's there's always signs here that this is not done yet, especially along a major trench zone such as the Philippine Trench. You guys remember 2019, July 4th, July 5th sequence there around Ridgecrest, California, in Southern California? They had a 6.9 on July 4th. A heavy amount of aftershock activity. I was like, whoa, something bigger is brewing here. It was not just one day later when the I think it was just a 7.1 struck. 1 day later after the 6.9. So watching this closely, I don't see any, aside from this last night, this is pretty crazy. We had a 6.3 stir up literally moments after the 7.4 up in the Philippines down across this area. I do think there's just so many earthquakes, you can't even see the Philippines in here. There's just a lot. Look at all this newer activity, though. Back building here across the, it almost looks like the Manila Trench. Remember I was talking about that in a previous update here. This is a new quake, so it does look like the strain is released or kind of shooting out away from the area. As you make one adjustment here on the plate, the Filipino plate right here is in this region. The earthquake is down here. As that pressure increases in this area, right? Because that's what happens here. When you get further earthquake activity in a certain region, that does apply further stress in other areas. It may be releasing strain in the area right there at the epicenter, but ultimately the plates continue to advance. And the advancement shows the arrows pointing to the west-northwest, right around the Manila Trench, and also up there around the Nankai Trough. That's a little scary. So we got two regions here we have to watch closely. The Manila Trench is capable of seeing some pretty big events there. We're talking about, mega quake activity. Let me see where it was here. Yeah, I covered this a couple nights ago. There's a fairly high slip rate there for the Manila Trench as well. 90 to 100 mm per year at the northwest, and 65 to 80 mm per year in the southern portion. And that's actually an incredible amount. And the Manila Trench sits up here right around this region, and it's definitely capable of some mega quake activity. The earthquake in question that we've seen today happened a little bit further down south here within the Philippine Trench. Let's see if they got any kind of summary on this. I'm surprised. Well, that's the 4.7. Hold on. There we go, 7.4. Yeah, there we go. I was going to say that's a big earthquake. I'm surprised, they didn't put out a tectonic summary here. And I do enjoy reading this because this is a technical analysis that the USGS believes what happened here. On October 10, 2025, of course, 7.4, oblique reverse faulting. Look at that slip rate, 100 mm per year in this area where the 7.4 struck. So it doesn't take hundreds of years to build up enough strain for a big earthquake. That 7.4 may not be our largest event yet, considering that the 8-pointer struck there. One of them was 100 years ago. Let's see. The Philippines frequently experiences moderate to large earthquakes. 155 other earthquakes of magnitude 6.0 or larger have occurred, including 15 other M7s in M7 plus. They don't mention 8s on here. I'm sure, kind of surprised they don't. I would have included 3 magnitude 8.0 earthquakes here as well. Just your technical information right there. That's what it looks like. Yeah, that's 58 kilometers deep into the subduction zone there of the Philippine Trench. 36 miles. Look at the Did-you-feel-it report from that earthquake. That's pretty crazy. Well, here's the estimated shake map. Epicenter, or intensity, excuse me. Had this been, much closer there, we'd be talking about quite a bit of damage over around the more populated areas here. But again, that's kind of scary enough to have that big of an earthquake there. Seen some videos floating around there on social media, and that's definitely a little scary, I can imagine. Eventually, I'm going to experience something like that out here in Northern California as well. Maybe stronger, but yeah, so definitely got to watch this area. As I showed you guys here on the map, there is some newer activity. I'm going to drop this globe count down a little bit so we can see what's going on behind it. Not that much though. So this is newer activity this morning, even though it's red. I dropped it down to the last few hours or so. That's why it's shown up red. It does look like we got some migration up north here. Around the northern end of the Philippine Trench, but also around the Manila Trench over there as well. You can kind of see it, excuse me, at the northern end. It's going to be this line right here, kind of a darker line, the trench zone of the Manila Trench. That earthquake of a 3.0 struck on it. The 4.7 striking a little bit further up north off of it, about 9 o'clock this morning as well. The importance of this is that we're getting some northward migration following last night's event, pressurizing this area of the Manila Trench. I can't help but wonder about the Nankai Trough up here as well. I mean, there's not a whole lot showing up on that area right now, but it doesn't mean we won't get some up there. But definitely got some migration north there of that 7-pointer. 299 earthquakes, is that right? Yeah, 299 aftershocks so far, with the largest being a 6.7. That's crazy amount of earthquake activity. It's just been a happening last couple months here. Started off slow in terms of the large magnitudes, but we're starting to play catch up here. Didn't I say that? Don't be surprised to hear about a couple more 7s out here. This is just the average number of earthquakes around the globe each year. So on average, we should see 7.0 to 7.9, 15 of them. And I think we're getting close to that. We'll double check that, though, a little bit later on this evening, as far as the tally, the numbers and stuff go. In fact, I recently just did that about a week or so ago, but now we got to revise it. All right, so movement happening north of the area, Nankai Trough. Watch that zone. What I find interesting is following that 7.4, that 6-pointer that popped over here around Papua New Guinea area. Just enough strain there for adjustment. You got to remember, when we get a large earthquake like that, that can definitely have adverse effects there, not only in the area as far as pressurized advancement of the pressure, but also adjustment backstream here. This area was probably getting ready to pop as far as this magnitude goes, and all it took was a little bit of adjustment on the southern end, and there we go. We get that further northwestward flow there of the Pacific Plate. That's the general movement out here. The Papua New Guinea earthquake struck right about here. Philippine earthquake right over here. But when things take place out here, look at the northward flow. Pressure out here, but it hit back over here across the plate boundary, 6.3. Literally about 15 minutes or so after the 7.4. There was another earthquake there, looks like in that same area a couple hours later, 5.1. This has been an area of interest here because it's got its own, potential large earthquake activity zone here, this trench zone. Look at that, pretty deep zone there. In the last 7 days, we've seen 2 6-pointers, 6.6 down south here. That was on the 7th, and then yesterday's 6.3. So watch this area. nothing on that right now, and that's this zone right here can definitely produce a little bit larger earthquake activity. There in the Solomon Sea, I believe that's the Solomon Trench zone right here. So keep an eye on that. Man, is this new over here? Yes, it is. Look at all this newer activity stirring up here on the southern end of the Filipino plate. Crazy. 5.6 and a 5.2. Massive amount of earthquake activity there. So we'll continue to watch that. I don't have a Philippine station up here on the live seismograph stations. I think let me see if I can get that to pop up. I tried it last night. I may have to. Oh, there we go. So now we can at least see some of the smaller quakes that are occurring, and it looks like there's at least 2 right there. Let me pop this down a little bit. We don't need that many popping up here, but yeah, I wanted to keep a Philippine station there up and running so we can see the amount of earthquake activity that's happening. The latest event looks like, it's hard to tell, 3.2. Where's that quake at? Maybe in that mix of earthquake activity. But yeah, be able to watch the Philippine seismograph station there. And that's around that populated area here where the 7.4 struck, just to the west, about 50 miles or so. Let's see, anything changing out here for the eastern Pacific? This is where the California lives, or California sits on. There's just so much activity stirring up last night. It was crazy. I didn't get a chance to do a late night update last night. I apologize. Me and Missy Mimi's were just watching the movie and stuff like that. It was our anniversary, so I had to, settle down and relax a little bit. So we'll cover some of the activity we normally cover at night. The tremor counts there from yesterday. 352 epicenters of tremor, not volcanic tremor. This is slow slip events there into the deeper area of the Cascadia subduction zone. We're always talking about trenches and subduction zones. Well, this area here is a major disaster maker there for the states, capable of producing earthquakes in excess of 9.0. And it's been quite active with Cascadia slow slip events here recently. The amount of time that has passed out here as well. And a recent article here linked the two here, the Cascadia subduction zone and the San Andreas fault. And if that's the case, well, with the amount of time that has passed on the many other sections of the San Andreas fault and the Cascadia, well, it's just I'd be walking lightly out here on the beach. Don't be stomping on the sand, because that in itself could, probably not, obviously not, right? You could have 100 people jumping on the beach and it's not going to trigger a big earthquake. But that's just how close we are in terms of the strain and the amount of time that has been building up out here. So the slow slip events underneath the Victoria area, Vancouver Island ranges here, 352. So that is a pretty solid amount. We've been getting that amount here since about July. Let's see what we got for numbers here. Let's see what we got for total tally. Ooh, wow, 24,000 epicenters of slow slip events, and it's covering the entirety there of the Cascadia. A lot of this was focused down here across the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. Quite active out here recently, with a lot of movement taking place offshore as well. Let me show you guys. I had a swarm out here along the Blanco fracture zone, the Gorda Ridges here. That's a spreading seafloor center, adding further stress and strain along the Cascadia. In fact, we had a number of earthquakes there, pretty shallow into the Cascadia fold and thrust belt. This whole area is bending in on itself as the strain is accumulating because of the Juan de Fuca plate being pushed underneath this area. Eventually, a big unzip will happen, and this land out here, the coast, will drop a number of feet, unfortunately, further providing a tsunami zone out there. It's a bad scenario if you really think about it. That's why you got to be prepared. I always talk about preparedness, and that's going to be a bad one when it does happen, and even more so if it's linked there to the San Andreas fault. Excuse me. Change in the weather comes change in other stuff out here. All right, so what do we got here at Mount St. Helens? We got a little 0.9, a couple other of these from yesterday. We do have some earthquake activity there at Mount Hood again. Remember I was talking about that, it was yesterday morning, yeah. Let's go show you guys the couple seismograph stations here and see what we got going on up at Mount Hood. I've been noticing a lot of earthquake activity, at least at 3 volcanoes. Look at that. Wow, that's crazy. So the S waves there, those wavy lines there, just pretty much blocked out any local data. That's from the 7.4 that struck there in the Philippines last night, last night. And then there's the 6.7. So that's a powerful earthquake, but not as powerful as the 7.4. Earthquake activity here locally going to be, looks like quite a bit. These guys showing a little 0.1 at 8:40 in the morning. Let's see if we're able to spot that. 8:40 in the morning is going to be, here's 9 o'clock, right here. That's a little 0.1, I believe. That would match that time frame, I believe, right here. Or maybe even this blue one. Regardless, if this is one, what about all these others? How come there's only 1 out of 10 being reported out here? And if we go back to the previous day, you'll see even more. And this is at Mount Hood. So this is just one volcano there across the Cascades that's showing elevated earthquake activity on the seismograph stations. A lot of this has been blamed on wind and ice quakes. And I get it. There's probably going to be some ice quakes. There's going to be some rock falls, but it doesn't happen every day like that. Earthquakes happen every day if they're in a swarm. 7.4 showing up on, this is Mount St. Helens. There's a 6.7. Local earthquake activity there as well. A number of them. Mount Rainier. This is the one that had probably over 10,000, maybe even 15,000 events here over the last couple months since July. Not joking. There's a big blog about it here on this site. That's interesting that it didn't pick up the, or maybe that's it, the thicker lines here. This may be a different type of seismograph station. Let me go back here and check out this one. I'm just looking for earthquake activity. There was a little bit on that one there, but some right here. See? A couple. That's at Mount Rainier. Go back to this one here real quick. So as you can see, there's definitely some local events going on, but this is nothing. And I got to show this for the newer viewers out here because it looks like we gained quite a few overnight. That's nothing compared to what was going on in the middle of July back here, where there was hundreds and hundreds of earthquakes each day. This was at Mount Rainier. Nothing ever became of it. There's no inflation, and really there's no inflation at any of the Cascade volcanoes, but there is definitely earthquake activity here, at least across 3 of them, which I find rather interesting there. So we'll continue to watch that. One earthquake off on the Blanco fracture zone late last night. 1700. Let me see. That was at 1700. What I find interesting as well. Oh wow, 1700. This was about an hour and 43 minutes later. Wow, that's interesting there. 1700 for this time period. That's when the last big earthquake struck out here, was 1700 AD, 325 years ago. And I'm going to say here, one thing I noted before that 8.8 struck here in Russia back in July, it almost looked like the Cascadia was about ready to pop. We had some interesting events out here. And then it was about an hour, no, not even an hour, literally about 5 minutes after we had activity out here. Maybe it was even up north here a little bit. I actually think it was on the Cascadia, if I remember right. We had some event there on the Cascadia, and I was out here across the ocean at the time near Fort Bragg, and I was like, oh man, hopefully the Cascadia doesn't pop while we're out here, because there was an event right on the Cascadia, and then 5 minutes later the 8.8 struck over here in Russia, and it seemed like it relieved the strain out here. It almost seemed like the Cascadia was about ready to pop, but that big earthquake out along the western Pacific here, the 8.8, kind of saved us. But this event, yeah, 1700, was 1 hour and something minutes prior to the 7.4 yesterday. It just seems like we're getting close out here, and every time we get close, big events happen out across the Western Pacific before anything bad happens. But that's just an observation. One earthquake here as well, still prior to the 7.4 that struck in the Philippines yesterday. That was about 43 minutes prior to the 7.4. This one's deep, though, into the Cascadia subduction zone, about 16 miles deep. Had a number of them there, see? At least 3 of them, all 17 miles deep or so into the subduction zone. So, yikes. I do think we're getting close, though. California and the West Coast, Pacific Northwest, we can't stay quiet like this forever. While everything else moves around, shuffles around, we're not fused. I guarantee you this plate boundary is not one as a fused plate. It will move. And when it does, it's going to be bad out here. 1.4 around the Bay Area, off of the Hayward Fault right now in the last hour. Let's take a look here at Southern California. That's another area here, the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. Very close, I think. There's one right on the southern branch at 1.8. A couple other earthquakes along the Garlock Fault shear zone. See, a couple above 2.5 from yesterday. Nothing today so far out there, but we'll continue to watch that. Some movement out across Nevada, including Valmy, Nevada, starting to show some earthquake activity again. Looks like that's one from yesterday, one from today. Excuse me. Throat's just... I don't know if it's getting sick from Missy Mimi's or just a change in the weather out here. For those that love fall, California, we got a taste of fall here coming up. Got snow coming down into the Sierra Nevada mountains with this next storm early next week. It's supposed to be over an inch of rain here in my neck of the woods. I'll take it. I love it. Bring on winter. Yellowstone National Park, 1 or 2 earthquakes up there, very small. But I do want to double check that and see where we're at as far as earthquake activity goes. There's the 7.4 vibration, literally. That's what happens there. It picks up these big earthquakes on the opposite side of the globe, thousands of miles away there. It just goes to show you how sensitive this equipment is, picking up movement like that. There's the 6.7 that showed up as a distant event. Local events here, a couple that they mentioned. It looks like there was some around 6 to 7:30 in the morning, and I believe that's what they showed here, 6 to 7:30. Yeah, 6, 7 in the morning here. Just a couple smaller quakes, but nothing big. Oil fields, little bit quieter, it looks like today. There's still movement out there, but really looks like a lot of that activity in the microquake range. One earthquake in the New Madrid seismic zone from today, 2.0. Let's take a look here at the earthquake 3D globe once again. Let's see if we're missing anything. I do have to see that ring right here, the 7.4. It's about ready to drop off the globe, but it really hasn't been 24 hours, so I'm going to have to adjust that time frame down a little bit more because there's so much earthquake activity happening here around the Philippines. It's messing up the globe count. So right there is it's technically 24 hours, but I had to adjust the multitude counts out here. Either way, watch the Philippines. Watch that northward migration here. Has not filled in yet around the Nankai Trough or the Taiwan area. That little section of the plate, I'm sure it's definitely under quite a bit of strain. Typical earthquake activity. In fact, it looks pretty light out here along the Middle America Trench and the South America area, the Peru-Chile Trench. Some earthquake activity from yesterday down in the South Sandwich Trench here, 4.8, and then that 5.4 along that fracture boundary. A little bit of movement up north here around Greenland as well. There's a lot going on. The North American plate's moving, the Pacific plate's moving, everything's shuffling around. And California yet is just riding the wave out here. Periodically we get some 3s and occasional 4, but that is nothing in terms of what should take place here soon. Realistically speaking, with the amount of time that has happened, that has passed since a big event there along the Cascadia, the San Andreas Fault, the Hayward Fault, many other faults out here, we should be seeing something rather soon. So be very prepared. Download, and I'm not getting paid to say download the MyShake app. It's a free app. And it's something I think everyone should have if you live in an earthquake zone. I believe it's only available right now for Oregon, Washington, and California, but you can always look. It's called MyShake Early Alert Notification System. It's just MyShake, and I'm sure you guys heard it last. No, that wasn't. That was the other app. But if you're around an earthquake epicenter where you're gonna feel it, you get a notification sent to your phone, and I've gotten a notification there in the past where it's gave me a 20-second leeway to where the I felt the shaking from the time I got the notification on my phone to the time I felt rolling motion out here. For example, last December we had a 7 point. Was it just a 7.1? Somewhere off. Yeah, it was just off the Mendocino Point, the triple point boundary here, southern end of the Cascadia. Not on the Cascadia specifically, but just off of it. 20 seconds from the time that earthquake struck to the time I felt a decent rolling motion out here around Chico. That was one of the more stronger ones I felt in a while, but that's nothing compared to what it's coming out here. And that's just not, a lot of people state that that's just fear mongering, and it's not. Explaining and focusing on an earthquake that is going to happen is not called fear mongering. If I said fear mongering would be like Yellowstone, right? I'm sure you guys seen it a lot. A lot of people cover Yellowstone. Look, we got 2 earthquakes there in Yellowstone, right outside the caldera. It's gonna pop, folks. It's getting ready to blow. No, it's not. There's many things you can look at. Inflation data. If this thing was inflating, we would know all about it. We've already checked all the areas out here. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down in terms of inflation, but this thing is nowhere near getting ready to pop. But that would be fear-mongering if I chose that route. Me talking about what is going to happen here, and possibly soon because of the amount of time that has passed, is just information, safety information out here for those to be prepared, including myself because I live right out here. What's going on in Los Angeles there? 12:21. That just popped up here in the last 10 minutes. Fillmore, California. That is north here of the Simi Valley area. Just getting a handful of earthquakes across this area. And any one of these, if they're big enough, maybe even small enough, could trigger the San Andreas Fault. Just because it's been a long time out there. This map right here shows you last time the sections of the San Andreas Fault popped. Now this 168 should be down here. See that red line? The 1857 7.9 earthquake struck and fractured a portion of the southern branch. It did not take the entirety with it. So that southern branch here has not had a rupture in over 300 years. It's about 1700 or so when they think that along with the other, a good portion of the San Andreas Fault went with the Cascadia. So more than likely, the next event will take the entirety of the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault with it, resulting in an 8.1. So just be prepared, folks. There's a lot going on out here. We're living in a time here where I think we'll see some interesting activity. Look at this earthquake up there around Mauna Loa just popped up. Right up at the summit area. Very shallow earthquake. I think we better go see what's going on out there at Mauna Loa area. We'll check in at Kilauea Volcano first. Deformation data. This will tell us what's going on underneath the area as far as inflation of magma. We're still going up. I do think we have a couple more days, though, before we reach the level where we could see another eruption. It's going up roughly about the same as the other events. But we're on our way there in a number of days, and that's at Kilauea Volcano on the Big Island of Hawaii. Far as Mauna Loa goes, see what's going on here. This is still an active. it's active in the sense that it's had somewhat recent activity. There is some localized events shown up there in the past 6 hours. Nothing big. I want to see if I can find a GPS station up here at the summit area. It's one thing I haven't really checked in a while. Oh, so there's our last eruption was back there, what, 2023? Is that right? We're going back up, though. So that almost looks like we've reached a level observed when we last had our eruption there. I believe that's when it last happened, 2023, if I remember right. Let's see here. Yeah, all these other ones are agreeing with that. This one's offline, though. But if you looked here at the other model, that one I just showed you, maybe that's why we're seeing an increase in earthquake activity here recently. Did not mean to click on that one. I'm looking at this one right here. Yeah, so there's the eruption 2023, or end of 2022. The eruption ended, and now here we are up 2025. And if you look here, the last model runs is at the maximum observed inflation level when that volcano last erupted. You guys see that? It might be something to look into here, as maybe getting close out here. We'll have to watch earthquake activity, at least in that area. This one is still old. This goes back not even to 2025, but we'll continue to check back on that, folks. A lot going on this planet. Imagine how boring it would be, though, if we lived on a dead planet, like geologically speaking. We wouldn't have all these beautiful mountains and lakes and rivers and valleys. All right, space weather activity, and it's crazy, right, to think that all this activity here, including that 7.4 and a bunch of other large earthquake activity yesterday, could be. I wrote this down last night that we've seen this elevated activity here in my handy dandy notebook, kind of keeping track of space weather events in relationship to large earthquake uptick. So 85 here had been facing us, directly center disk of the sun, lined up perfectly there with the Earth-Sun plane. And sure enough, we've seen some large earthquake activity. Now, whether it's a coincidence or not, it's something that I'm looking into, and it's been looked into even before I was looking into it. So I'm just kind of keeping a total tally here of events. And this is just one space weather event, the coronal hole that's been facing us, that I'm keeping track of, because the magnetic lines here on this, pretty much, they don't loop back in on themselves like a sunspot would do. They're literally shooting out magnetic lines straight out into space. And, it could have an effect there on the planet when it comes to plate movement. No major solar flares. In fact, the flare department, look at that, B5.2. That's almost like solar minimum. We're way down there. 15% chance for an M flare. X flare, non-existent. Looking at the sunspots here today, this is somewhat current. We're definitely behind a little bit with that UTC time there. But we do have a couple new regions out on the eastern limb here. Just looking at them, it doesn't look like they're all that complex. So our flare threat will remain minimal. Aurora activity, there's the coronal hole high-speed solar wind stream. So I don't think it's necessarily the high-speed solar wind stream that could stir up the earthquake activity, because it takes 48 to 72 hours for that high-speed solar wind stream to reach the planet. And as you can see there, it's in a couple of nights. I don't know if it's tomorrow night or the next night before that high-speed solar wind stream arrives. But the magnetic lines there, when they shoot out, I believe that has an effect there on the stress of the plates, maybe on the planet, which increases the earthquake potential out here. But I don't think it necessarily has to do with the high-speed solar wind stream, because that takes days for it to get here. The magnetic lines that arch out may have more of an effect. But either way, it's something like I'm looking into. There's a bunch of people thinking that there's a relationship between them. A pretty big channel here on YouTube that always mentioning the coronal hole activity and to watch for uptick. And sure enough, it happened yesterday. All right. Yeah, so pretty quiet there across the sun in terms of solar flares, protons, that type of nature, or that type of activity. As far as aurora activity goes, excuse me. Let's see if we got any big space rocks headed to the planet. These are all fairly small and at millions of miles away. This one under a million miles, but that's a 45-foot house-size asteroid there, newly discovered. Far as any severe weather goes today, let's take a look here. Got marginal risk down there across Nevada, California. Technically four corners over in this area. Not the typical four corners, but down across this area. Got, looks like maybe a little bit of wind threat. That's about it. So watch your wind chimes out there with those thunderstorms. Nothing major coming up here. We do have a decent low pressure system coming into the Pacific Northwest. Most of the rainfall from this is going to stay north of me. The Coast Range will get some northward into Oregon and Washington. It's not until early next week here where we get a little bit better shot of some precipitation and also some snowfall coming into the Sierra Nevada mountains. That weather model looks a little weak. This one is still showing another storm on the 20th. Looks like the storm door may be open there across the west coast finally. The ECMWF model, which is the more reliable model, if you ask, and it depends on who you ask, but I've always looked at the ECMWF model, and it's got a little bit more accuracy when it comes to what really could take place. This one shows more of an offshore low pressure system with rain coming in on the front side, which is somewhat good for the valley. That way we don't get that blockage going on as far as the rain shadow effect coming down from this location. But either way, we do have some wet weather coming up here, and I think it'll stick around for a little bit. I'm ready for some fall temperatures, and we've been getting them. That is not an emergency alert. That was actually my cell phone ringtone. I have that as my cell phone my ringtone. That's pretty crazy. If I go in the store somewhere and that thing goes off, people look at me like, what? What's going on? They actually look at their phone. But I like it. I kind of like the EBS alert system there. What are they trying to do here? Trying to get the Garlock Fault shear zone to go? Those earthquakes that popped up are now considered quarry blasts. Right on the Garlock Fault shear zone. Okay. Watch that trigger the big one out there. Anyway, folks, a bunch of movement around the Philippines. Watch the Manila Trench. We'll keep an eye there on the Philippines aftershock sequence. Another earthquake coming in right there to the Philippines. That's very close to the epicenter of the earthquake activity. A lot of movement directed south here, back building along this plate boundary. Nothing yet up here northward. We do want to watch that because that could very well fill in a big fashion. Keep an eye on that. All right, I'm going to jump off here, folks. Have yourself a wonderful Friday. We'll definitely see you out here for the Friday night update. I don't have anything planned today. Real quick in chat. Yeah, Alex, I use a number of earthquake apps, and it's just called Earthquake. Yeah, you're right. I love that one. Anyway, just want to jump in here and chat. I did get your email, Alex. Thanks for that information. Yeah, but anyway, we'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later. I am trying to reach a goal there of 150 members. If we do get that, then we'll pick out 3 members. Far as what we got right now, I'm going to turn off this display capture real quick and take a look because there's some private information out here on this end that I need to cover up. I don't want to broadcast out here, so stand by for just a second. Go over here to memberships. Let's see our members. Okay, so I'm gonna pop this up here so you guys can see now where we're at, and we are at 127 members there right now. It looks like so holding steady. We need about 25. What would we need for 100? Yeah, about 23 or so. more members for 150. If we get that point, we'll definitely pick out 3 winners. Okay, there's a cash prize if you want. Our last winner chose a $50 Visa card, and of course that's an easy method to get to you, either digitally or a physical card, or if you want like an Earthmaster shirt, something along that lines, we could do that option as well. Or if you want like a geology mining kit, the choice is yours. Either way, 127. We got 10 days to get to 150. I think that would be cool to do 3 winners. That would be pretty awesome. I mean, that's a heck of a shot there when it comes to the odds. Better than one, one in 127. So, all right, I'm going to jump off here, folks. Have yourself a good one. We'll see you guys back out here for the Friday night update. Take care.